Good afternoon, guys. We are out in the garden today. It's about noon, so it's not the most comfortable time of day, but I had a bunch of stuff to do this morning and I went to the gym. So this is when I could make it out. And we are just gonna do a daily garden harvest. This is what I pull out of my garden on a typical day when I come out and I water and I check over everything. And we're gonna see what we pull out today. So every morning without fail, I am pulling out harvests of green beans. Namely asparagus beans, though I do, if the seeds haven't gotten too big, I do pull off some cowpeas as well. But let's get these asparagus beans taken care of first because they grow really quickly. And if I don't pull them off when I see them the day of, the next day they're going to be completely unusable. So I like to use clippers to pull these guys off just because, I mean, you can pull them from the vine, but they tend to rip the actual vines, and I want to keep those intact so that I keep growing beans. So I just come along with my clippers and snip up at the very end. And this is all from 2 separate vines. I've got 4 here, and I see plenty more to harvest. And this is what's gonna happen if I wait too long to harvest them. It looks edible, but in between each of these beans, if you can see that bulge right there, it just becomes airy. So these asparagus beans are finicky with how long you can leave them on. And once they get these air pockets in between the beans, the texture's not real good, the flavor isn't real good, and so they're best left just to dry, like this one, and then I can pull seeds out of it. Look like that. This is an especially fat one. Just see how it's completely flimsy in between these beans here. This is no longer edible. You do not want to eat these. These beans are almost hard, and we'll just let this one completely mature and dry out. So this is pretty typical of the daily bean harvest I'll get. This is actually enough if I cut them into bite-sized portions for like a meal for 1 or 2 people. But usually what I end up doing, because I'm pulling this much off every day, is I will take these inside and put them in the fridge in a bowl of cold water. That keeps them from like shriveling up really badly. And I will just wait until I have enough to make a good portion of green beans and then serve that for the whole family. And it usually only takes 3 or 4 days. I mean, these beans are very long. They're almost a foot long. And once you cut them into bite-sized pieces, I mean, it's a lot of green beans. But in the meantime, these would normally just get all wrinkly and weird. So soaking them in a bowl of water in the fridge preserves them the best while you're trying to collect enough to make a side dish out of. And once I'm done with my asparagus beans, I'll come around to all these random cowpea plants I have, and I'll harvest off the big ones. These look pretty good. These are about a good size to pick. And I'll just collect more beans from all of my cowpea varieties. Now with these asparagus beans, they will put out seed that dries into pods and still continue to produce new fresh green beans. But that is not the same with these cowpeas. So I do try and harvest these regularly so I can keep getting green beans from them. But like this plant, I missed quite a few pods, and see how these are all dried. This plant is most likely not going to grow me a whole bunch more beans. Luckily, I can harvest these pods for seeds or as dried black-eyed peas, which I can show you right now, which is this little guy right here. And, you know, use them in a soup or a stew. So I'll do the beans first and foremost because I have a bean harvest every single day. What I don't have a harvest of every single day are tomatoes or peppers. But usually I always have an okra harvest as well. Now that the okra is huge, I'm getting at least 1 okra a day. 2 or 3 is more common. But if you let them go too long, they will get very, very big very quickly. Like if I let a small pod go just 24 hours, it'll be inedible the next day. And here in my okra bed, although I do have some okra elsewhere in the garden, this is where I'm getting most of mine. So I'll just come through every day and look, this guy is ready and needs to be picked. I like to use my clippers. That's a little difficult with the camera. But here we've got 1 okra, and I think I saw another one. Yep. This guy is kind of small, but he will be way too big tomorrow if I let him go, so I'll just cut him now. The 2 varieties of okra I grow are this burgundy red okra and then clumps and spineless. I don't have experience with either of these. I grew Texas Hill Country last year. I didn't enjoy it that much, but I have found that this clumps and spineless stays edible a lot longer. You can get a lot bigger than the burgundy red and still be edible, because if this pod were to get like too much bigger than this, it would be really hard and crunchy and just wouldn't be very good to eat. But I have found that the clumps and spineless does a whole lot better staying soft at larger sizes if you do miss an okra pod or 2. And one perfect example of that is this burgundy okra, which is pretty large. It's still edible, I could still eat it, but it's getting on the tougher side where it wouldn't be very good fresh. So let's grab this guy. And I've also got an okra plant over here, which is a clumps and spineless. I harvest okra every day, so all of those were either too small to harvest yesterday or just came up overnight. Okra is a very, very good crop to grow if you live in the heat and humidity. It's just a great lover of heat, and it is so productive once it gets to a large enough size. And next up on what I'm harvesting daily is peppers, although I do not try to harvest like all of the peppers every single day, because with how many peppers I'm actually getting, I do a lot of preserving instead of fresh eating. I just can't eat that many hot peppers in one day every day. So I like to try and leave as many on the plant as possible so that once a week or once every 2 weeks I can come out and do a massive pepper haul to take in and either ferment or put in the dehydrator. And I've shown you guys in a previous video, which I will link, a massive pepper haul that I waited about a week to come out and just collect all of the ripe peppers that I could. But that being said, there are still peppers that I pick daily just because, you know, I'll miss some ripe ones and I don't want them to dehydrate on the plant and the plant to think that it's done producing. I want it to keep producing me peppers. So I need to get rid of these ones that are ripe, and just, it's only about a handful a day that I do this of. And that's enough for fresh eating every day. It's more than enough for fresh eating every day, but it is some sort of maintenance that I have to perform every day just so the plant keeps on putting out fruit. So here's my enormous jalafuego plant, and generally I leave all of the jalapeno peppers on here so that I can come out and do one big massive jalapeno harvest. But what I will pull off are the red jalapenos, because this is indicating to me that it's ripe. So this guy's gonna come with me today, and the rest of the green ones will stay here. Over here in this bed, most of my pepper varieties in here ripen to red, so it's really easy to come through and find a red pepper and know that it's ripe, no matter the variety that it is, and just grab it. And the rest, as they're turning, I will just leave them on here. Like this one's not quite ready yet. I'll leave this guy on here until I have multiple red peppers on this red chili plant, and then come and do a big sweeping harvest. And here I have a red chili I can grab right now too. Come on, there we are. See, this is what happens if you leave it on the plant too long. It will just dry up on the plant, and this is something you don't want. So I'm gonna pull this dried one off so that this plant doesn't think it's done producing for the season. And he's obviously not edible, so I'm just gonna leave him on the ground. And that's how I get new volunteer pepper plants next year. This is a Thai pepper plant, which has 1 million ripe Thai peppers on here. But unfortunately, I'm not going to harvest these just yet. There's tons of green ones as well. They hold pretty well on the plant, so I will leave these on here until I just have a massive amount of red ones, and then come and spend like 30 minutes harvesting them all so that I can dehydrate them all at the same time. But I do see another jalapeno that's ready. Yep. There we go. So not a massive pepper harvest, just a few ripe ones that I see need to come off the plant, and I'll take these inside. Even if I had more peppers to harvest, I really wouldn't want to because I have enough ripe peppers on my counter and I just can't get through that many daily. So I do my best to leave as many on the plant as possible so I can do that big sweeping harvest for preservation all in one go. The thing is, I don't want to harvest a couple peppers every day and then use the electricity to run my dehydrator for 10 peppers. I'd rather have all of my trays full and use that electricity once and get everything done at the same time. And the last thing I do check for when I'm out here is ripening tomatoes. So as I've talked about before, I have tomatoes on this Grand Marshal that are still coming up. This one's got some blossom and drought right here. But he's still pretty yellow and they ripen to a red, so I'll leave him on there. But I'll just come through here every day and check to see if I've got any ripe tomatoes that I can pick. This one looks pretty good. Oh, nice. And I'll take this guy in to finish ripening on the counter. I've been having some bird problems. So I've been picking these guys a little underripe and just setting them on the counter to finish up inside. This is my Estiva tomato, which I'm still getting some harvest on, maybe once every few days. I'll take this guy inside to ripen as well. But this one is very, very diseased, and I haven't been getting too much more off of him. Here are my cherry tomato plants. I've got the Mexico midget right here and the chocolate pear. I've got new fruit coming in on this chocolate pear. I don't really harvest the cherry tomatoes for fresh eating. I'll just come outside and snack on them while I'm out here, or if I see a ton of tomatoes on the plant, I'll do one big sweeping harvest and then go inside and dehydrate those for quote-unquote sun-dried tomatoes. Like I've said before, we don't eat a whole lot of cherry tomatoes just in like recipes, so they're more of a snacking tomato for here in the garden. But I still come through and check because I'm getting a few heirloom giant crimson tomatoes off of these couple times a week. Those aren't ready yet, so I'll leave them. Some of these are so tiny. Look at that little baby. And on this Bikino pepper, I actually did a big sweeping harvest yesterday. So I have got a ton of tiny Bikino peppers inside in the house that I'm going to dehydrate for a spice. But they will last a little while on the counter. I want to wait until more of these ripen up so I can do more at one time. I mean, there's just a ton of these tiny little peppers on this plant. And even after harvesting yesterday, look at all these orange ones everywhere that I could pick today. So that's about what my daily harvest looks like. I've got a couple tomatoes, a whole lot of green beans, a whole lot of okra, and a couple peppers. It may not seem like a lot, but when I'm getting this every single day, it absolutely adds up in the house. Now these tomatoes are super easy. What I'll do is they're not even ripe yet, so I don't even have to worry about eating them anytime soon. They will sit on the counter to ripen, and then as long as they're in good condition, like this Estiva has no blemishes or anything on it, I will let this ripen and then core and score it and stick it in the freezer, and I can make tomato sauce later. Super easy way to store your tomatoes for sauce and not have to do anything with them right now. As for this okra, it lasts a pretty good long time on the counter, just as is. But what I've been doing is chopping them up and coating them in batter and then freezing them for fried okra later. That's an easy way to store these and I don't have to do anything with them. And then the green beans, of course, I told you guys at the beginning, I will just stick them in the fridge in a bowl of water and keep them there. That way I make, you know, usually a whole to-go container of green beans a week, and then we can eat that as a side for dinner or lunch or something like that. And they will last several days in the fridge just in that bowl of cold water until I'm ready to make a big old batch. And that's what I'm doing. I'm not getting a whole bunch else out of this garden besides herbs. Of course, I have holy basil that I'm pulling out and dehydrating on a regular basis. I've got mint and catnip and yarrow. But as for food-wise, everything else is pretty much done until I get the fall garden in. I have started my fall, my cold tolerant fall crops. Seeded them this week, so that is very exciting. And my onions have started to sprout. I also seeded my onions last week. The next big thing is going to be finding out where to put everything. I am definitely going to have to rip up plants to plant out these spring crops, especially the onions, because I won't be putting the onions in the in-ground garden. The soil just isn't good for onions. They like really rich, nutrient-rich soil that's soft and loamy so they can bulb up nice and big. The in-ground garden is not that. So I'm going to have to rip up one of these beds, or possibly two, depending on how many seedlings come up, so that I can plant my onions for overwintering. But we will get to that when we get to it, because right now it's not the time and I don't even want to think about it because I still have so much food coming in and I don't want to rip anything out. But thank you guys for being here today. I want to apologize. I have not been as active on here as usual. I still put out 2 to 3 videos a week. I'm just not doing every other day. I'm really feeling the overwhelm of the garden right now, and it is a chore for me just to get out here and do my daily harvest. And without the garden, I don't have a whole lot of content, but I appreciate you guys being patient. And for all of you new subscribers, I am so thankful for you. And hopefully it will be cooling off very soon, because now that it's been raining, it's just 100 degrees and humid, which stinks. Hopefully it will be cooling off soon, and I'll have plenty of fall gardening content coming shortly. I cannot wait to get started on this fall garden, because I'm over the summer. I'm over the heat. So thanks for sticking with me. It's been a stressful couple of weeks, and I'm glad you're here. I'll catch you on the next one.